Hello there, my name is Diana Kolesnik, and now we will unveil the top news of recent days. The Ukraine Recovery Conference 2024 takes place in Berlin. The motto, United in Defense, United in Recovery, Stronger Together. It is a continuation of the annual series of high-level political events dedicated to the swift recovery and long-term reconstruction of Ukraine since the beginning of Russia's full-scale war of aggression against Ukraine. It is also the first Ukraine Recovery Conference hosted in an EU member state and comes at a critical time for Ukraine. The conference will reflect the Lugano principles, including a whole-of-society approach to recovery through the meaningful participation of a broad range of stakeholders. Upholding the spirit of the Ukraine reform conferences that took place up until 2022, the URC 2024 will also showcase Ukrainian reform progress in the context of its economic resilience and the EU accession process.
Ця війна має різні
This war has different levels of confrontation. The front line, the land, sky and sea, where our people are defending themselves from the military attacks of the Russian occupier. Our economic defense is the need to preserve all the bases of normal social life. Jobs for people, taxes for the state and communities, and the ability of entrepreneurs to maintain and expand their companies. Also the political confrontation in which we all have to counter Russia's attempts to split and weaken the democratic world, and a battle for people's motivation for their sense of whether normal life is still in place. To withstand and win such a confrontation is complex work. It is an effort to defend Ukraine against Russian aggression, to ensure that our society is resilient to any shocks of this war, and to preserve our European way of life, which we share with you. A life that is being destroyed wherever Putin comes, wherever Putin's Russia comes. First, it comes with a split and a hybrid war, as in Moldova, as in Georgia, and then it comes with an all-out war, like the one against Ukraine.
The key goal of the URC 2024 is to mobilize continued international support for recovery, reconstruction, reform, and modernization of Ukraine. This includes providing emergency assistance for immediate needs, implementing rapid recovery projects, and creating attractive conditions for businesses to unlock the private sector investments in Ukraine, and civil society to actively engage in the reconstruction process. The URC 2024 will focus on the following four thematic dimensions: mobilizing the private sector for reconstruction and economic growth. To facilitate investments in Ukraine, both local and international, it is important to strengthen confidence in the Ukrainian business environment, showcase success stories, and signal long-term political support. Important issues include business opportunities in key sectors of the Ukrainian economy, state support instruments, international support in access to finance, and a green and digital transition. Social recovery and human capital for the future of Ukraine. The human dimension is key to recovery. It includes the mobilization of human capital for reconstruction, as well as issues of social cohesion and inclusiveness. To unleash the potential of all citizens at home and abroad, particularly women and youth, we need to ensure that Ukraine is a country worth living in for all, promoting education, healthcare, and the provision of social services and infrastructure, as well as advancing mine action and the integration of veterans, internally displaced people, and returnees. Recovery of municipalities and regions, local and regional actors play a central part in reconstruction. The conference would spotlight the role of local communities with respect to recovery, the distribution of financial resources, and capacity building. This entails creating livable, resilient communities through sustainable urban development, housing, and local economic activity. At the same time, we need to address transparency and accountability, as they are key to building citizens' trust in Ukraine's resilience. EU accession and related reforms. EU accession is an enabling process for economic growth, investment security, and the sustainable recovery of a competitive economy. It also supports stable political institutions and guarantees human rights and the rule of law as well as functioning public service institutions. By stock-taking and showcasing progress in addition to highlighting key instruments of support, the conference aims to build confidence in the reform process. Importing cross-cutting issues such as macroeconomic stability, resilience and security, infrastructure, housing, energy, climate protection, the green recovery, healthcare, education, environment and gender will be integrated into the above-mentioned dimensions. Moreover, there will be an intergovernmental element and a recovery forum as an integral part of the UAC 2024. Russian military plane suspected of violating Finnish airspace. As the Ministry of Defense cited anti-hacking, Finland takes the suspected territorial violation seriously and have immediately launched an investigation. It was the first such move since the Nordic country joined the NATO alliance last year. The plane flew in Finland's airspace for about 2 minutes on Monday morning, the Defense Ministry said in a statement. The incident happened in the eastern part of the Gulf of Finland, with the aircraft reaching as deep as 2.5 kilometers into Finland's territory. The latest such incident happened in August 2022, when 2 Russian fighter jets flew into Finnish airspace. The Nordic nation joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in April 2023, just over a year after its neighbor Russia launched its full-scale war in Ukraine. Now, the region has seen a hybrid war with Russia suspected of jammed GPS signals in the region, among other developments. For months or years now, GPS signals have been spoofed and jammed in parts of Northeast Europe neighboring Russia. In the end of March, Russia was blamed for one 63-hour attack that affected thousands of aircraft in the region, while there has been a flurry of large and new GPS jamming attacks in the region. A French regulator blamed Russia for GPS jamming around Finland in 2022, and there were other jamming instances in 2018. The Guardian reported on the 22nd of April that thousands of flights to and from Europe had been affected by the jamming. The publication stated that as of then, around 46,000 aircraft had logged problems with GPS over the Baltic Sea. Various articles and commentators have put in that finger at Russia for the GPS jamming. Most of the GPS jamming issues are clustered in Eastern Europe in parts neighboring Russia, including its Kaliningrad exclave. It should be noted that Russia has not claimed responsibility for GPS jamming. This may be part of a hybrid war designed to cause inconvenience and inflict pain while maintaining plausible deniability and avoiding retaliation and open conflict. Parallels in hybrid war can be drawn with cyber attacks and gas wars. Writing about the recent GPS jamming in Eastern Europe, one journalist went so far as to post on X, "It appears the Russians are testing it here for a potential future attack on Poland, Baltics." Russian intelligence services are going through third countries to purchase American and European goods for its military complex, and Putin is rapidly turning Russia into a war economy, Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adeyemo told Voice of America Ukraine service. Today, Putin has decided to invest in guns, not barter, to invest in building out his military and not in the Russian people. And while this is going to be devastating to the Russian people over time, it does mean that he's going to be able to produce weapons unless we take action. And this is what we need to do. Stop Russia from getting the goods they need to build the weapons they want for this war. And what that means is using sanctions and export controls to go after companies and individuals who are providing the Russian military-industrial complex with the goods they need to build their missiles, to build their tanks, and build their other weapons.
One of the most important things we can do is make sure that the United States, Europe and all of Ukraine's allies are sending the same message to China that it is unacceptable for them to power Russia's war machine, and that ultimately the companies and individuals in China who are selling these goods to Russia have a choice. They can do business with our alliance, which represents 50% of the global economy, or they can continue to do business with Russia's military complex. They can't do both. Wally Adeyemo, Deputy U.S. Treasury Secretary, in an interview with Voice of America's Ukraine service.
Russia now is a war economy, and we have to treat them as such, said Adeyemo. Moreover, Russia is looking for new partners for defense cooperation who would provide components or weapons for waging war. As part of these efforts, the Kremlin may sign an agreement with the Sudanese armed forces. It provides for a exchange of weapons with a Russian logistics center in Port Sudan in the Red Sea, reports the Institute for the Study of War. And Ukrainian military analyst Alexander Kovalenko reports that Russia has stepped up the purchase of Soviet weapons and equipment around the world. Sudan gives an example. There are a large number of T-54, T-55, T-72 tanks, as well as their Chinese and Iranian modifications. In 2023, Russia became ready to buy back old Soviet and Russian weapons and equipment exported over the past 30 years to countries in Asia, Africa, and even Latin America. And the information about the current attempts of the Russians to obtain weapons in Sudan is somewhat discordant with the bravura propaganda reports of Russian media that the country's military-industrial complex is working as never before, and production volumes are growing day by day. Approximately 90% of the equipment sent by the Russian military-industrial complex to the combat zone in Ukraine is not new, produced completely from scratch, but restored old Soviet equipment from warehouses and storage centers. And in the third year of the full-scale war in Ukraine, Russian stocks of Soviet equipment were significantly thinned. And against the backdrop of the accelerating pace of its destruction and parallel restoration, the process of stock reduction accelerated. And with the tactics that Russia uses and the new weapons that Ukraine is already receiving and will receive, the pace of destruction of Russian equipment will accelerate even more. By the way, last week, according to statistics from the General Staff, Russia lost a record number of artillery systems, more than 50 units per day. That concludes today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated, comment, like, and subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. Your support really matters. Goodbye.